Good evening, all. Thank you for coming to the third of four meetings for SHAC for this academic year 21-22. Today is March 10, 2022, and I appreciate all of you coming. Today our agenda is kind of limited. We've got two things, major things to discuss. One being the inclusion of the SHAC committee in a larger committee for the District of Innovation. District of Innovation allows local control, a lot more specific local control in school districts. It allows you to change some of the rules, so to speak, so that it really fits the needs, tailored needs of the district. And one of the things that have been done at other districts is the combination of committees to have one large committee to make decisions and have knowledge about a wide range of things that operate in the district. I love the thought, one, because you can consolidate the meetings, but two, there's so many different, there's nothing in a school system that works in isolation, nothing. We all cross, and even programs like SEER relate to other things across the district, or health and wellness permeates all the way through the district. And so this allows this committee to be much more informed, well-informed, and really kind of see how the webs, if you will, combine and work together. So the proposed plan is on the district website, and you are able to view it. And I ask that you consider when the committee is formed that you would think about joining, because you get all kinds of good information relating to whatever efforts that we'd like to do. And so I'd like for you to encourage you to consider that. Have you had a chance to look at it, and do you have any questions in particular about the plan, or maybe how it does move forward? I might lean a lot more on Dr. Mullins because this plan has been in the development for a while. It's the second round of District of Innovation, and so after the first one, there were a few little tweaks to again personalize it to Pine Tree. This invitation is not just for today, but if you look at it later and go, hey, what does this mean? I might not know, but I'll find out. Any questions so far that you can think of about?
Did you say the email had information in it?
Yes, ma'am.
So that you don't have, okay.
It had a link.
Since I didn't get that, if you'll just
send it to you.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to take
And all it is just a link to the website and the complete plan.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then you'll get a chance to review it and see if you have any particular questions on it. Can you name another thing that was in it, please?
Well, one of the things was we're working on a strategic plan. That was kind of part of that. We had a strategic plan that was done in 2017.
Sounds about right.
And so those have been our goals, district goals and campus goals for our district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. So we're going to be developing a new strategic plan. And we looked at certification was another one. So because of the teacher shortage, not only in Pine Tree, but across the district and probably across the nation, we have the ability to hire teachers that don't necessarily have the certification as long as it's approved by Mr. Cluxton at his discretion. And so you might have, like my example is my husband's a banker. And so he's obviously has a degree that he might teach a finance class or something like that at the high school.
So it would be something related to the degree they have.
Yes, correct. Or it could be that they're just not certified. They might be working on their certification through an alternative certification. They might have a degree, but it's not related to what they're teaching. And so they have to. The goal is for them to work on their certification, whether it's through an alternative certification or whatever that might be.
We currently do that.
Yeah, I knew they
yes.
had alternative certifications.
But it was expanded. So the original District of Innovation focused on CTE and certain content areas where we were struggling finding them, and the new one is for any position we could hire.
Along that line,
Sure.
how do y'all go about when you decide to make for an alternative service? Because the reason I ask, I know 3 different people who got that, and then they were never meant to be I think they got it thinking wrongly that teachers have the summers off, they're off at the holiday, you know,
Yeah,
and
it's
so.
such an easy gig, right?
Yeah, exactly, and, you know, when you've got that, and then you have somebody like my daughter that has a master's in education and, you know, went
Right.
through, there's such an array, because you don't go into education for the money, we all know that.
Right.
So, you know, just for the benefit of the kids, you know, I hate to see us ever get to the point that we are so desperate to have a body somewhere that, you know, somebody goes out and they can pass a test, and we put them in the classroom. So
Well,
is there
but
any
there-
process besides?
There are, okay, so teachers are required to be appraised annually. And principals are in those classrooms doing observations
Right.
as well as the formal observation. And we, you know, Mr. Cluxton believes that we need qualified
Right.
teachers in our classrooms, especially with our population, because they don't have, you know, many of them don't read before they come to school.
Right.
They haven't been read to, and they haven't experienced it. So all those things are so vital to a well-rounded education. Our population doesn't have those advantages. So we need the best teachers in the classroom. So if we happen to hire someone that does have a teaching certificate or doesn't, you know, those principals are well aware that that teacher is struggling. Our goal is to support them, to make them better if we possibly can. But if they're not cutting it,
Right.
then we thank you so
And
much.
let me add that when
Yeah.
we hire, every single teacher that we hire meets with
Yes.
Mr. Cluxton.
Right.
I mean,
You're right.
the principal makes the recommendation after their interview. And then he actually meets with every single one to let them know, this is what we expect, this is our culture, to see if and usually, I mean, he's like, yeah, this is a great one. Occasionally, he has said,
Yep.
He picks up on
this
something.
one's not gonna work, I don't think.
And I know that's not every, because I know some that's got that alternative certification, and they are
Of course,
fabulous.
of course, yeah.
You know, so I'm not saying blanket, I just have
No,
wondered
it's a good
always,
question.
No,
you know.
sure.
The other thing that has been done here is that those specialists, those curriculum specialists, have been pushed out to the campus. Meaning, we don't have a lot of curriculum people here. Though they're in the trenches, in the classrooms, working closely with teachers at the grade level in their content area. And so that was one of the initial shifts that were made, so that people who, with that knowledge and expertise, were where the rubber met the road, versus in a different location. They still stayed sharp in instruction.
Right.
And so that, along with the pieces that the other two ladies added, kind of help hopefully give you a better picture
Okay.
of how it's done here. And it is done differently.
Yeah, okay.
Good question. I love your question.
Yeah.
Any other question that you can think of that we can expand on? Okay.
Is the planning committee similar to that strategic planning committee we were on?
It will, I think it will be similar. The
Okay.
strategic planning committee was a cross-section of a lot of
Mhm.
different, fields,
Yes.
community members, higher ed, whatnot. I don't think it'll go quite that far, because that was a different purpose, but having a larger group, it will be larger. Mr. Davenport, would you like to add anything about, the DOI revised committee that may be of interest? Okay, but yeah,
Okay. So it'd be similar to that?
yes, sir.
And so you're basically just asking us if we're willing to.
I want you to know about it, and I want some of my SHAC people on the committee.
I think that's great.
And
That's-
we will,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we will have things that we have to, Sharon is our, coordinator of federal programs. And so the district improvement committee, there are certain things that we have to do throughout the year.
We kind of already have it in the site-based committee, because we've combined all of our titles, our federal programs, with members that we're required to have to make decisions for those committees onto the site-based committee, so just adding the SHAC committee to that group would be
Okay.
pretty much
Mhm.
have us covered for anything we could possibly need to, make a decision about.
Sounds good.
Anything else? Excellent. Now, this is where I want to get. This is the meat and potatoes for me, because especially now as we consolidate our efforts into one group, I want to think about some of those priorities that you might have seen identified in our district that you would like for us to focus on in subsequent years. So I gave some general topics last time we met. And I have some things myself that we're looking at, but I wanted to hear from you first. So our broad topics are child nutrition, physical education, counseling, psychological and social services, and then health services. And I gave you a few examples of some possible topics that could be included. One of our people who is unable to be here asked about pre-athletics and wanting to have a skill set, kind of like a skill set outline for parents during pre-athletics. Pre-athletics is a new program in our district, relatively new, 2 years?
No, probably 4 years.
4 years, okay. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason was to build up our athletic department. A lot of school districts have kids that play Little League, and from 5 years on, they've been playing baseball or basketball or football or whatever. And to build that same kind of capacity, the pre-athletics program was kind of designed, as well as not Little League, we just
Like the power, little dribblers,
yes.
like we did this year,
Yes,
the little
that's
bumpers in volleyball, yes. And we started that, and that's really taken off. I mean, we had a bunch of kids this year do the basketball.
we had a whole lot.
Yes.
And we're
The
doing
pre-athletics
softball right
part.
now?
For
aren't we?
sixth grade.
Softball's been,
Softball's done, they have like a little, I don't know what that league is called, but
Yeah.
it is related to where they can come up to the school and do it at our facilities as well. But our basketball's done well, little bumpers are taking off. We're doing the spring league now with basketball, and hopefully get some area schools in with that, so our kids are.
Are you gonna have
constantly playing.
baseball?
I hope so. I know Coach Messman is really pushing to get some of that going, because our baseball numbers have really dwindled. I mean, we graduated a larger class last year, but I think right now we're probably shooting 25 to 30 kids in both JV and varsity. I mean, that's low compared to where we've been.
Doesn't
so.
leave much room for
Injuries,
injuries.
yes, yes.
Well, my
And-
grandson is going into sixth grade next year, and he eats, sleeps, and breathes baseball, so that's why I was asking.
Good. And so that was like one of the thoughts that came up, was to share, for lack of a better term, a scope and sequence, talking about the fundamentals, what they would be discussing. So out of this is something I'm going to present to the athletic department and say, hey, this came out of the SHAC committee for you to consider. Okay? So that's an example. Give me any thoughts that you have come up with, and I'm going to scribe them here as we go forward. Please tell me your thoughts. Any thoughts?
I have a thought on the recess elementary and primary.
Yes, ma'am.
And, this is the first time I've vocalized it, so. Sorry. And I haven't even talked to Mr. Claxton about this, but Claxton and I.
Good.
We were talking about the transition from 4th to 5th grade and how it's so difficult.
Mhm.
And as a parent, since I'm here as a parent,
Mhm.
I would really like to see recess continued in 5th grade to help the transition, and they're still, at so many districts, considered elementary.
Yeah.
Fifth grade is, even in UIL, they compete with elementary.
Right.
Mhm.
And we didn't have it when I taught fifth grade over there. We had recess.
And I'll tell you, Jackson,
We had
he
recess once.
misses recess. He
Yeah.
talks about that all
Yeah,
the time.
that
that
was
they don't
something
have
that Reddick
recess.
That's the kind of
Hated.
thought I
What he
want.
hated about 5th grade is that they didn't have any recess.
Have recess.
And so,
So there's no time for them to just
Free
let
play.
loose
Right.
and let that energy
Mhm.
go. Because they do go from, I mean, if you go to one of those things, when you go over there, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is it, and you're expected to be from class to class in this time, you're not, I mean, it is a major difference from
It is
going.
huge.
It
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
It's less traumatic than it used to be, because
Yeah.
they have shifted it. It did really function more like a secondary school
Yeah.
several years back,
Mm.
and that has shifted. It sounds like it just needs, we need to consider another little shift.
right.
Okay. What other thoughts? I love that one. Thank you. What else?
I haven't really come up, but I have been trying to think about the counseling, social, I mean, I just think that's such a, sadly, it's such a, problem or an issue, and I saw in the news journal thing where they had our clinic has been overwhelmed by the need. And that's sad, but at the same time, it shows that our establishing that clinic was a blessing.
Yes, yes.
I do have a question.
Over here yet?
Say again?
Is the one over here yet?
Do they function over there? Yes. Nobody's there all day, every day, but do they serve kids over there? Yes. Mhm.
I do have a question about our counselors, cause I'm just totally ignorant about it. What do we require to be a counselor on our campuses?
As in the certification required to be a counselor?
I don't know, do we require some kind of certification?
Yes, the state of Texas
That's-
requires
I
for
don't
you to
know
have
what-
a certification. You have to have, 3 years of teaching experience, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pulling this off the cuff. And then you have to have a, certification in counseling, which requires a master's degree. So, to my knowledge, all of our counselors meet that basic level requirement at this
They
point.
have one working on her certification.
Thank you.
The problem
She-
I've seen,
she is
and
working on it.
of course, I'm outside of
But
the
she would have a
industry.
master's degree
Yes.
already.
Has to.
But I feel like our counselors have so many other things that are on their backs to do, testing, you know.
The
some of
law
it-
has changed so that they have, 90% of the time, that they work must be done in counseling duties. And so, I'm working with our lead counselor, Bill Urban, to make sure that we're complying with that. Now, that does not mean they would not have, some activities to do. For example, when I was a principal, my counselor, greeted kids as they came off the bus every day. Because for me, majority of my kids arrived by bus, and my counselor could look at my kids and go, ooh, something's wrong with Janet today. I need to talk to Jada's mama, and we need to do something. And so that is a strategically placed counselor with a duty, but has a purpose that's a counseling purpose. But that is part of it. And looking at having more groups, small groups, where you have students that are struggling with the same thing, loss, a loss of a parent, or even loss of a pet, or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
So
It's
they will do more of that. The counseling from Wellness Point will drill a little bit deeper to do individual and or family. So right now, our referrals go through the counselors, the campus counselors, because they are the best place to find out which way that kid needs to be directed. Those referrals go through the lead counselor, and then we have is she an LSSP? No, we have a licensed professional counselor in training. What is?
I don't know what her. She's-
I'm messing up her title.
Yeah.
But we have somebody on campus in district, but her schedule filled very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And so, it does not in any way, alter her, employment, but multiplies her. And we also have interns. I will tell you, I sit on several boards, nonprofit boards here, and I was just out of curiosity, asked what some of the major needs were. Newgate, Highway 80, some of the big organizations. And every one of them said mental health. Mental health was the first thing that they needed. They didn't say clothes, they didn't say shoes, they said mental health. Every one of them. And so it made me feel extremely really proud of what we have here. And that kids are already going, and I have heard back from at least 3 parents, and they're very pleased. Now, remember, the clinic is for everybody. I just like calling it our clinic, but it is for everybody. The other thing I want to make you aware of is that we are looking at a application for homeless services for homeless students. Now, we don't have an overabundance of homeless students in our district. The majority of them, and that's called, the federal law that it's under is called the McKinney-Vento, which requires school districts to provide services, utilize some, reserve some funds, and then as well as provide transportation possibly to needy families. So in that, what my goal is to do is to find out what our people need specifically. I use this as an example. There was a lady who was working and walking to work every day. And so some coworkers got together and they got her a car. And so she had a new vehicle, a vehicle to drive to work every day. Well, in a couple of weeks, she was walking again. She had sold the vehicle because she had, medical bills that needed to be paid for, and that was a priority for her. Well, it kinda left hard feelings on both sides, but no one asked the lady what she wanted. So, that's my intention. I think it's very presumptuous of me to say, oh, well, you're poor, or you're this, or you're that, and you need this. I'd much rather talk to them, and because we have such a small number, those are gonna be individual, personalized visits. I anticipate that some of the things that we would do, because what I like to do is even the playing field. For example, I have little Valerie who is on the cheer squad, or on the dance team, or in the band, and she needs a uniform, or tennis shoes, or, an instrument to participate and not look any different than the rest of the kids. I want all of my kids that you look at them and say, hey, there's a pirate, and that's all you see. So those are the kinds of things that I anticipate doing with, those funds. But as far as the counselors, LSSD, I think that's what it was.
Can I say something about counseling?
Please.
So the counseling also too, I mean, academic counseling, but the high school you're sitting more schedule. So it's just not one-on-one counseling. Now I wanna give an example of how ridiculous it is. So I think is it a licensed professional counselor, LPC, is that what it is?
That's
So
what
anyway,
she is.
back where I'm from, we wanted to hire one. Now, it'd be great, we could hire a licensed, you look for the SHAC? Yeah. We're in here, and I wanted to hire a licensed counselor. TEA said they still had to get the TEA certified counselor to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Because that focuses on the academic part.
Yep.
That's what we say school counselor, it's academic counselor. How are you
Right.
All the way up here.
That is crazy.
Is that okay?
Doesn't
Perfect.
need the address.
That's just my comment about the ridiculousness of it, that a licensed counselor.
Good. Any other thoughts on counseling in particular, counseling, psychological, or social services? A lot of how PACE, the alternative school operates really from this point. There's academic, absolutely, academic is there, but this social emotional wellness, collaborative efforts, getting along and all that is heavy, very, very heavy at PACE. They do a lot of role playing, they have a lot of outside mentors that come in to speak to them. That's very heavy at PACE. And I would venture to say it's helped with recidivism. Now, you're gonna have some ringtail tutors that's gonna always be your freaking flyers. But for the most part, I want to say they're reformed, but for the most part, they're able to take those skills and move forward with them in a positive way. Anything you can think of under counseling?
Is there, to kind of go off because of what he said, is there a way to hire someone to fulfill the needs of that and it not be?
Well, I mean, we've got one, and that's Wellness Point, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, their, like, big vision down the road is for them to provide a
Those
counselor,
services.
psychologist at each campus.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, that's
So
their
we're kind of
long-term.
going around the TEA by going through wellness.
Oh, I mean, we can hire one too, they just cannot be a school counselor.
So
Now,
if they're just a counselor, but they don't have the.
you can still do that, the school.
They're feeling two different needs, though. They have a different focus, so they're feeling two different needs. We definitely have a need for both the therapeutic counselor and the functional counselor or academic counselor in the school. You know, we continue to be inundated with all the ills of society, and so there is a place for both
Right.
and a need for both, in my opinion. Okay. So let's move to health services. One of the biggest things that we did with health, did anybody else have anything on counseling before I move on?
I might be late to the game since I came in late, but does the grant for the clinic allow for a counselor to be in the clinic?
Okay, the clinic itself functions on about a $200,000 budget, which it's about $400,000 to operate. And so the grant does not fully pay for staff. It's supplemented by funds that are generated by Wellness Point or, costs to the individual. Give me your question again, I think I'm getting lost.
I didn't know if we had the option to have a counselor in the clinic.
Oh, the counselor, there is a counselor in the clinic.
Oh, there is, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then
The
we-
counselor, we currently have an employee counselor at the clinic at Fairmont and, Northwest.
Okay.
That same counselor has an office here at, Pace, thank you. And then there's an office at primary campus, just because that was the campus that had real estate available. And so though they have not started services at the primary campus, the only reason why they haven't is that we need another counselor, because her schedule has already completely filled.
Yeah.
And they're looking to fill that role.
Oh, yeah, it's posted.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of applicants, but no one has been decided upon yet. Mhm. Thanks for answering the question.
So will that, funding, will there be additional funding since there's another need for another, or does it have to come out
Oh,
of that?
there, Wellness Point is taking care of it.
Oh, okay, great.
And that's the beauty of it, is that entity on itself qualifies for all kinds of, grants, funds, services. We get to take advantage of it from a location standpoint. The other is that from a priority standpoint, if I got a kid that is in crisis, once I get parent permission, I can, accelerate them through the process. Good question. Any other thoughts about the counseling? So Wellness Point will probably talk a little bit about it on health services too. For the most part, our health services has focused a lot on COVID and mitigating COVID. Our numbers are significantly less than they have been. We will lose one nurse this year at the junior high. She has decided to retire.
20 years in and she's going.
You know, quitter. And, and then, so our primary, nurse will be moving to junior high, and we anticipate hiring a new, counselor for the primary campus. Excuse me, nurse, thank you. We have hosted vaccination clinics. We have a vaccination clinic coming up next 2 weeks.
Yes, we have a COVID vaccine clinic coming up in the next 2 weeks. And then we have,
Just a vaccination
just a
clinic.
vaccine clinic for students who are needing their 6th grade shots and then their shots before they go to college. We're hosting one in April the 6th for those, so 6th graders going into 7th grade need their Tdap and their meningitis, and then when you're 18, you can get your 2nd dose of meningitis, which is, required and recommended for going to college. And so we're hosting that on the 6th, and then the other one is gonna be just a COVID vaccine clinic where you can get 1st, 2nd, 3rd boosters, whatever you need there. I believe that's on the 26th.
Close. The other thing, that where Wellness Point fits in, they are going to conduct our physicals for our special needs kids for the Special Olympics, which is coming up very quickly. They're going to facilitate those, and I'm calling it a trial run because we anticipate that they will, conduct physicals as well as for athletics as well as band, for the fall. The location is so convenient.
Yes.
So
And
they'll be open to doing that for us, like, we
they
have a
are,
kid moved in.
I got to go.
Excellent. We've got mass physicals coming up through Christus for the athletes on the 29th of April.
Okay.
April 29th, we're gonna do that for the athletes, the ones that require 7, 9, 11.
Good.
So.
See, my thought was we test with a small group of special ed,
Mhm.
because once I get athletics or band, those are huge numbers.
Band's a need, and I'll be honest, they're a need that needs to happen, because band is only for high school. It's only high school band that's required to have a physical, and they don't fit like Christus doesn't put like fine arts into that mass physical because there's so many schools. So they do all the athletics from all these schools. So like Spring Hill will be there, Gladewater, Pine Tree, Longview. I think Hallsville's coming to that on the 29th.
Well, they should have had their own clinic.
But they've got enough doctors that I put
Right.
500 kids through last year, I think.
And that's what they will do, is bring in additional people when we need them.
Oh, that'd be great, that'd be huge.
And if you have not had an opportunity to stop by the clinic, you're welcome to go by and walk through. They're very, very welcoming. And it's they do accept walk-ins, but of course with any place, if you have an appointment, it's better. But we will continue to provide services for the community. All of our clinics have been open for anyone who would like to have a COVID shot or a COVID booster. It's a service to our community as well as to our staff. Thoughts of things that you've seen in other places that you would like to see us do relating to health services? Ideas, thoughts about moving forward? We do have preventative trainings that are done every year, CPR, first aid, stop the bleed, all of those continue to happen on a regular basis. All right, I'll move.
Make plans for some more stop the bleed trainings I think that would be a good idea, especially since it's been a little while since we've got employees and such.
Well, I think that, and I think we also need to look real hard at training more people on the use of these act chairs that we've been integrating into the schools.
Yes.
I'm gonna put that down.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Cause those are
Specialized.
kind of big ticket items, but, they're very effective if you know how to use it. And it's kind of a bear if you don't. You can end up working you instead of you working it.
Good. Any other thoughts? Again, if you see something out there later on, this invitation doesn't close. So if you think of something, just send me an email or send me a text. Anything else? So I'm gonna back up.
Oh, wait, I'm
Sorry.
sorry, on the use of.
Evac chairs.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Child nutrition. Our child nutrition department really does an excellent job, you guys, at camouflaging nutritious foods. That's just the truth of how I see it. They camouflage them well, and kids, they don't need to know there's vegetables in their pizza or in their gummies or whatnot. She continuously evolves and has taste testings for students. By the way, she didn't let me know that she couldn't be here, but she has taste testings for kids to try out new things, and is always trying to find some different way to keep kids engaged. We have universal breakfast and lunch for all of our children, which is another way that we find that we don't differentiate kids. So if lunch is free for the most rich and the most poor of our population, which is a really good equalizer. Anything that you guys have thought of that we could possibly do to improve child nutrition?
I think they're doing a good job. My kindergartner would come home and say, Mama, I like green beans, cause she ate them at school, but she won't eat them at home. So I don't know what they're doing.
You need to find out what they put in their green
Yeah.
beans, girl. Especially over there, Miss Lee. I don't know, she can hook them up.
I love going to school on Thursday, one of the campuses on Thursdays, and get my little chicken strips and the mashed potatoes and stuff. That's like my favorite meal.
And I encourage you to have lunch with them. Kids will tell you more than you ever wanted to know. But it's a wonderful time to have with them and to have an adult just pay attention to them. That's all they want. That's why
Well,
they tell
and
you
all the other
everybody's
kids
business.
come up and hug on you, that's not just yours, so.
They're happy to see you. So if Valerie's grandma comes, she's everybody's grandma today.
That's right. You leave there feeling better than you did.
Don't you? Your love cup just overflows. Anything else, my friends? These are the topics that I wanted to cover, that are general, broad topics that SHAC addresses. And these will be recommendations, and I do have some more myself, that I will put in as we move to consolidate our groups for next year. Anything that you can think of that we should include or think about for next year?
Well, on the bullet that you have, social groups with campus counselor under the counseling,
Yes,
what does
ma'am.
that entail?
That's like when I'm speaking of groups with grief, or dealing with a particular kind of loss, or mean girls, And we're gonna work on social skills and how we get along with others. It could be,
So it would be implementing something that's addressing a needed topic in a group, and they wouldn't necessarily know that, hey, this is being something that's addressed at me,
Mhm.
because it's gonna be in a group.
Parents would know.
Yeah,
But the children, they just mean, I just get to get pulled with Ms. Banter, the counselor.
yeah, okay.
And we do activities with Ms. Banter once a week.
That's great.
Mhm. I have one who's dealing with maturity, and Ms. Banter pulls, and I keep telling her, girl, time in a knot if you need to. And she's, no, we're working through it, and that's, you know, but that's kind of the things I want them to be able to do more so, because it in my opinion, it directly impacts their behavior in the classroom.
Yeah.
If I can teach you how to sit down, you know, the expectation is you come to school, you work hard, you're respectful. But if you don't know what that looks like, it's hard.
If you've never seen it.
Yes, and so that's what I want the counselors to do. Help them see what it is, why it's important, how it's useful to them, and why they should do it. And then when they are with general and have to do that on their own, especially as much as they role play, when they are actually faced with that, they do a whole lot better. And that's what the small group provides, is that safe space with people that you know and that you work with, and that you can get a teacher, an adult, the counselor in this case, to coach you through it.
I have a question, Dr. Baxter.
Yes, sir.
From the classroom perspective, right?
Mhm.
The classroom teacher perspective. What would the referral process look like?
For?
I just had a student pop up in my mind who, you know, he's been back and forth to PACE. He's really struggles to with grit and overcoming any type of adversity and seeing what, like you said, working hard and doing the right thing looks like. So if I had a student that I wanted to refer, what does that process look like?
Goes through the counselor.
Okay.
The counselor has a kind of, if we have an internal referral process that kind of categorizes kids that we are seeing, and if it's going to the personal, the individual counselor at, like at Wellness Point,
Sure.
we give a perceived issue. So we can't diagnose, of course,
Right.
but we can say, Valerie seems to have a difficult time working well with others because she's been in a fight 3 times this week, and, you know, those kinds of things. You know, you're telling what the issue is and why you believe, why you support that recommendation that this is what is the need.
So just essentially having a conversation with the counselor.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, the reason why they are the ones, because they do referrals for come on, Jack, what's that word?
Behavior threat assessment.
Thank you,
Is that what
thank
we're
you.
working at?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's gonna be imperative that you get with the counselor, because under current code, education code, we're required to move through a process to determine the threat level on that particular student, whether it be to him or herself or other students.
And when we do that, the counselor is the one that, with their professional judgment, goes, okay, I need to do a risk assessment on this kid.
Sure.
And they need counseling.
Sure.
Or, no, we don't have a threat, but this kid needs counseling.
See, that's kind of the position I was coming from, because I feel like, at least for me personally, and several of the staff members I can think of off the top of my head, I don't think they would have a clue what to do in regards to that process, whether it's somebody that's maybe a violent threat or someone who's just needs some, you know, a little bit extra, and so what that would look like. And so I was just curious how classroom teachers across the district get that information, or is there a way that they get it?
There is not one now, because the counseling from Wellness Point is so new.
Sure.
However, there's been an underground process, if you will,
Right.
with Sarah Barnett, who is the LPC.
Okay.
But it still goes through the counselor.
Sure.
And so what I hear from you is, I probably need to do something to explain to the teachers how it should go, because what I'm doing now is trusting that the counselors, because they're on the campus, they know the kids, that they are getting those
Sure,
referrals.
sure.
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and I know you don't want to be just inundated with every teacher trying to say, this kid needs help, you know, but for the instances where they really could benefit, you know, making sure there's at least some understanding on how to get through those channels would be
Mhm.
beneficial, I think.
I hear you, and I agree. Any other thoughts, my friend? Even some that says, hey, you need to do this, 'cause I appreciate it. Because if I don't hear it from different angles,
Sure.
different vantage points, I miss something, so I appreciate that. Can you think of anything else? Y'all are so easy to sleep. All right. When I come up with the other thoughts, because I didn't want to put mine here, because I didn't want to sway things, but I will share this with you all. When we consolidate groups and present them as recommendations, as well as let those individuals responsible for those areas make them aware. For example, training on the use of EVAC chairs. I would reach out to Jack Irvin and say, hey, what about doing some training next year? Or what is the other one? Pre-athletics. I will speak to Dinkins or to Lane and say, hey, I had a question about pre-athletics that came up out of my SHAC meeting. This is the comment, or this was the feedback that I received. So that's how this would flow, how it will flow.
Did you put her thing up there with the recess at the fifth grade?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's already there.
Okay.
If you think of other things, don't hold them back. I want for us to be able to continue to pour into the lives of our children. I'm most proud of the innovative things that we do relationally and the innovative risks that we take. Because you're going to have to tell us no, because we're going to do it anyway. So, as you think of things and as you come across colleagues or friends or relatives in different areas, if you hear about programs that they're doing, please let us know. Because I want them to come and see what we're doing here too.
One of the, Hartsway Hospice does a, retreat every year for kids. I can't remember the ages, for grief counseling for like loss.
My cousin is the director.
Yeah, it's on my.
Why are you
Facebook
holding
page.
back on me?
Well, I didn't think about that, but I can put you in.
I would love that. I love connecting my kids to different agencies. There are a couple of reasons why. Because there's a whole new set of adults that love my kids and that are monitoring them and has an expectation for them to do well. Combining services, because I can't give them the specialized services that their grief counselors would. That's what they do all day, every day. So why wouldn't I bring in that kind of expertise? So I want partnerships.
Okay, I'll put her in touch with you.
Thank you.
It's
That-
June 5th through 6th or something like that this year, so it's in the summer.
Cool. And see, for my students, we can make arrangements for them to be able to participate.
But my understanding on that is they will work with kids in the midst of that, because not everybody's grief is gonna happen at that time in the summer.
Right, and it doesn't mean you had to have a recent loss either.
Right.
Let me tell you, this is the perfect example. Mr. Urban, we've had a child, Dr. Mullins, we've had children this year that have lost parents in a very violent and tragic way. I wish I would have known, but I do now. And that baby is still.
Yes, because that grief does not just.
So I would love to have that connection.
It doesn't
To
when
be able to give
adults
them.
go away.
Yeah, right.
No.
Let's
Still-
let the
you
kids.
still miss
your
your mother,
Yeah,
no matter how long.
Absolutely.
How old you are.
Mhm. So, yes, and those kinds of things, if you know of organizations that say, you go, hey, have you ever thought about? No, please, I won't ask for anything for myself, but I will get on my knees for my kids and beg for anything. I have no shame where that is concerned. So, let me know, especially if you aren't comfortable doing it. All I can do is tell me no. Okay, my friends, unless you have something else, I thank you. This concludes the third meeting of forum. We will meet
May the 12th, I looked it up, May the 12th is our next meeting.
At
Dr.
5 o'clock.
Baxter, do you wanna begin at 5?
Yes, please. If you come in later, it's no problem.
Oh, yes.